Hey guys, welcome back to more relationship stories. In this video, my late husband took out a $80,000 loan to help his toxic family, and now they demand I pay back the loan because I supposedly owe them, even though they hated me ever since we got together. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the story. And the first one starts like this. So my husband's family point blank has always hated me to the point that they even tried to sabotage our wedding. The biggest issue was that my husband was Indian and his family could never accept the fact that he married a white woman instead of somebody from his own culture. They spent years, even after the marriage, trying to push me aside and try to set him up with other women that they deemed to be a more appropriate match for him. They also always came from money too, which I knew could not be unrelated considering that I don't come from money and I work for a living. During holidays and events, his family always tries to tell him to come without me, thinking that I don't even know what they are up to. He has told them off a couple times, but never in a big way that will change anything. They are stuck in their ways, and after many years I just learned to live with the fact that they hated me and dealt with it. I still went to all the events just to make a point that they couldn't get rid of me. After 8 years of marriage though, my husband got really sick and I took him to the hospital. Things from there got worse and he passed away. His parents did come to the hospital and actually were blaming me, saying that if he was married to a nice Indian woman, he would not have gotten sick, which I know makes zero sense but is still beyond messed up to say to somebody. When he died, they did not come and I was left on my own to make arrangements. His family started to contact me at that point almost daily, but it was not the kind of calls that I was getting from friends and my own family. I was a mess at that point and people knew that I was not handling the sudden death well. I was depressed and did not feel like eating and could barely sleep. Friends were coming over with food to try and force me to eat and get out of the house even for small trips. I was broken and his family was making things so much worse. While he was alive, he took out a loan that I didn't even know about. His brother was getting a place to live and my husband was the one who took out a loan since he was the only person with decent credit. It was an $80,000 loan and it only was taken out 6 months before he died, so basically none of it was paid off yet. Instead of talking about their dead son, they were far more interested in constantly talking to me about the loan. A loan that I knew nothing about until this point and had no time to process because of them pushing me about it. Mother-in-law, the loan is going to be due soon. The bank wants to start getting their money back and we want it paid off in full. Me, well, first of all, I don't have that kind of money, and second of all, if the money is for your son's apartment, then he should be paying the bank back every month. Mother-in-law, how dare you ask to burden him with that? It's not his responsibility since it's not his loan. Plus the bank will want interest and you will ruin another one of my son's lives. Me, are you really this cold? Do you not care in the slightest that he died only a week ago? Mother-in-law, of course I care, but now I need to protect my other son. Make a payment this week or you'll be in trouble. Me, again, I don't have the money and I'm not responsible for paying for your son's home. I heard talking in the background and then the phone was handed to my father-in-law, who I guess also wanted to get his 2 cents in. Father-in-law said, "You listen to me, girl. He signed that loan and since he made the mistake of marrying you, that means it's your problem. If you cause him to lose the house, I promise that I will sue you so hard that we will take your house too and give it to him. I have a lawyer ready and you might be too dumb to know that the debts of the husband fall onto the widow, but I'm not." I hung up at that point because I honestly just could not handle it. On top of everything else, getting yelled at and threatened by his family was too much for me to handle. As for finances, I was too worried about making sure that I was gonna have enough money to keep my own house. My husband did not have life insurance, so I was stuck trying to plan the entire funeral out of pocket. An expense that I had asked his family to help with, but they refused, claiming that I was the one that owed them money and not the other way around. They did come to the funeral a couple of weeks later, with his entire extended family showing up, which I was actually happy about since I felt like part of him was in heaven and knew his family cared and wanted to come and see him. What I did not like was that they decided to start controlling the entire funeral as if they were the ones that paid for everything. Then they started complaining that it was not big or fancy or expensive enough, and supposedly I was not honoring his memory appropriately. I never heard before about people ruining a funeral. Weddings sure, but this was the first funeral I've ever heard of being ruined by the parents of the husband. The constant calls and voicemails about the money and me getting sued did not during this time, and they had the nerve to bring it up during the funeral. If my sister didn't get in between us, I might have punched the in-laws for talking about it when I was so messed up and I couldn't stop crying. Either way, my sister was a saint for me through the entire entire process and actually helped a lot since my mind was just spiraling too much to think clearly. I was actually trying to figure out a payment schedule to pay off the debt to avoid getting sued from it, since I knew if I made monthly payments they couldn't actually get me in trouble for ignoring the debt. It was my sister that stepped in and told me not to give them a penny until I spoke to a lawyer, and I'm so glad that she did, or I would still probably be making payments to this day. I met with a lawyer and they were able to force the family to give the details about the loan. So my husband had signed it and my name was nowhere on it. This was good because it meant I could probably win in court, claiming that I didn't have my name on the loan and I knew nothing about it. The other detail was that his brother's name was on it as a co-signer, so it used my husband's good credit, but since there was another name on the loan of somebody who was alive, it was now his responsibility. This was probably why they wanted me to pay so badly. They knew that I got a lawyer and decided to step up the harassment by trying to make me look bad in the community, telling people lies that I had stolen money from his family, and now that he was dead I apparently wanted to run off with it and not help them now that they needed it back. They were just painting me as a money-hungry person that took advantage of a death, which is the most ironic thing they could have done, by the way. They even showed up to my house and got inside under the guise of wanting a few things of their son to remember him by, which, despite the current fight, I was not gonna deny them. However, they used the opportunity to again ask me for a payment and even tried to do me a favor by saying that I only had to give them half the money. I knew what they were doing because my lawyer warned me. Their trick, probably gotten from their own lawyer, was to try and unofficially lock me into that loan. If I had made even a single payment, it would show that I was unofficially taking over my late husband's debt. That meant I was gonna be responsible for the entire thing, even if my name was not on anything officially. That was why they wanted me to make a payment so badly, before any of this got to court or in front of a judge or something. They were trying to play me, and I was lucky because my lawyer warned me, or I might have fallen into that trap. The harassment did not stop and even moved onto social media, trying to basically shame me into giving them money, but I didn't do it and waited until they would take me to court. They just kept threatening, and I decided to confront them with a bunch of paperwork that I had gathered. With it, I showed them that I knew damn well that I was not obligated to pay anything, and I knew that my name was not on the loan. Instead, the burden would shift from the primary signer to the co-signer, aka their other son. Again, they tried to tell me now to give their son the money and do the right thing. They told me that my husband would be disappointed if he could see what I was doing to his family, that he would be ashamed of me and happy that he no longer needed to be married to me because he was dead. And well, that was it for me. The final straw, the line in the sand. I started screaming at them, telling them off for being horrible people and that I was done with their crap. They were never gonna see a single cent from me, and if they tried to contact me again, I would be filing a restraining order. If they tried to spread more lies and slander about me, then it would be them getting sued. They did not believe me and instead actually did try to take me to court. I countersued them for harassment and slander. I had all my evidence and the court told them that the burden of the loan was not on me. As for the harassment and slander, I got a restraining order and they got a stern talking to. People heard what happened and that alone kind of fixed my reputation as people realized it was all lies. They were now seen as the horrible people they truly were, and I didn't even need to lift a finger for that to happen. They dug their own hole and now they could lie in it as I tried to keep my life going without them in it. And yeah, ripe stars, if you would have been in this horrible situation, please let me know what you would have done in OP's shoes. I'm very curious about what you have to say about this one. The next one is titled, "Treat me like a child, I will treat you like a child." Posted on r/pro-revenge. So the town I lived in was not huge and at the time only had one gas station. I got a job there at the ripe old age of 15 and worked there for 2 years. By the end of my time there, I was essentially number 3 with the manager and ass manager ahead in charge. Eventually, another gas station opened up across the road and I got a job there too. There was pretty high turnover, so by the end of my tenure there, everybody else, including the managers, were new. This story takes place about a year after I left them. One last thing to say, puberty is a bitch and didn't feel like making its way over to me forever, so from age 12 to 18 I looked the same. Not exactly, but I looked really young until about 19, a little bit insecure about it. So since I knew all the employees at the store, I would always get gas and grab a nice ice-cold chocolate milk from there rather than my store. When I got to the fridge with my milk, I was dismayed to find that there was no more. But seeing as I spent the entirety of my working time at the store, I knew that they kept the stock in the back of the walk-in fridge behind some boxes. This fridge was also where all the beer was, so when a customer, old BRTCH, noticed that I knew what I was doing, assumed I worked there. That seems fair considering she had probably seen me there on many occasions and I usually have no problem helping people. Oh, if I had known that how good a day this would turn out to be. OB, hey kid! Knowing that there wasn't anybody else in this tight-ass fridge, I turned around from fumbling about in the boxes. OB, yeah you, go put this case of beer at the cash, holding out a case of beer. Even if I did work there, I wouldn't have done it, but I figured I would gently remind them that I'm an actual person. Me, sorry, I don't work here anymore. Plus miss, that was really rude. I'm going to have to assume that I triggered something for her because she lost her mind screaming about how she had seen me here before and she knew I worked here. I tried to get a word in edgewise but was unable to, and with her between the door and myself I figured I might as well try and ignore her and find my chocolatey goodness. OB, look at me when I'm talking to you, you ungrateful child. Me, look, it seems like you're having a bad day, so I'm going to let all that slide and just remind you that I no longer work here. With a huff she turned around and walked out, but not before she threw one last insult. OB, your mother must have been incompetent to have raised such a selfish boy. I had been having a good day up until that point because my usual self is a vindictive little boy who normally would have screamed right back at her. That changed when she insulted my mother. I found my drink and went to the registers. These machines were ancient and took about 15 minutes to boot up and glitches frequently. Karma strikes quick and without mercy, for when I got to the cash they were having some technical problem with it and the screen was frozen glitched/karma. Knowing there was nobody in the store except for myself, the woman and my buddy who just started working there about 3 months prior, I was in no rush to help. When my friend finally got fed up with trying the usual debug procedure, he looked up and asked for my help. When working there, I was the go-to person and I still frequently get calls from management asking if I could pop by and fix something for them in exchange for some free candy. A win-win. I glanced over at the screen and immediately recognized the problem and knew that it was a simple fix. All he had to do was click 2 buttons at the same time. If you had thought that OB had gotten quieter as this whole process was going on, you were wrong. She must have seen the recognition in my face when I saw it because she started howling at me to fix it so she could get out of there. Seeing my chance for revenge, I struck. Me, apologize. OB, stunned look. What did you say to me? Me, I would like you to apologize to me and I'll fix the problem. OB, you little idiot, fix it right now or I'll have you fired. Me, I would like to remind you that I don't work here and I still expect an apology. I assume she was running late because after another 2 to 3 minutes of back and forth, she finally relented. OB grumbling, I'm sorry, now will you fix the machine? And normally I would have accepted it, but I still had another 30 minutes to get kill before I started work at the gas station across the road, so I figured I would push it. Me, sorry for what? More incoherent yelling from this lady, and my friend tries to stifle his laughter. Me, I did not hear an apology in there. OB, I'm sorry for being rude, even though you were being a brat. I stared at her just thinking that she was so close, so close. She could have been free to enjoy her beer and free to annoy anybody else that crossed her path, but well, alas, it was not meant to be. Me, nah, I don't accept. Have a nice day. She had a dumb look on her face before it turned into a scowl, and she started screaming again. OB, I swear I'm never coming back to this gas station ever again. The employees here are expletive, as she stormed out. Now, most people would be content with that. I, however, was not. I quickly hit the buttons fixing the machine and ran out yelling a quick goodbye and telling him that I'm paid for this tomorrow. She swore the one thing I knew she wouldn't be able to keep. She swore that she was never coming back to that gas station, which could only mean she had only one place to go for her booze. Across the road to the gas station I work at, the place where I'm the #1 employee and where the owner would back me up if he were there, and if he wasn't, I was in charge. I ran over to my job and told the cashier to take a break, sit back and enjoy the show. By the time I got there, she had already rushed into the fridge to get her beer, and when she got out, she was greeted by the sight of me grinning from ear to ear behind the register. Cut to 15 minutes of swearing later, and she leaves again without beer. My coworker standing there slack-jawed, wondering how I was able to stand that verbal tirade, and even more confused as to why I kept on laughing even more as she went on. That was a good day. And the next one is titled, No, I Won't Open the Door. My male 41 wife, Becky, female 39, is planning on traveling abroad to visit her sister and her family in the next few days. She will be gone for the next 2.5 weeks, and over the past year, my wife has become very good friends with our neighbor Emily, female 37, who lives a few houses down the road. Long story short, Emily makes me feel uncomfortable and I think she's trying to make a move on me. At first I thought she was joking and I didn't think much of her behavior, but now it only makes me feel uncomfortable. Earlier today, Becky told me that she chatted with Emily and mentioned how she would be going overseas for a few weeks. She said that Emily offered to come by and drop off some food for us, myself and our 11-year-old daughter Alice, from time to time. Becky was reluctant to agree, but after Emily insisted, she finally agreed. I was surprised that she would agree to this without consulting me first, so I told her that it made me feel uncomfortable. Becky said that Emily means well and it would be rude if we were to refuse now. I said okay, but that she shouldn't be surprised if Alice and I forget to open the door every time Emily comes knocking. Becky said that I was being a jerk to someone offering us kindness. So Reddit, am I the a-hole? And yeah, Ripe Stars, let me know in the comments what you think about this. Was OP an a-hole here or not? Let us know. Comment number 1, not the a-hole. Flip the script and ask your wife if she would be okay with you telling your best mate that he can stop by even if you knew he was interested and made her uncomfortable. Ask her if she would be okay with the guilt if you turned out to be right. Good partners don't allow their SOs to feel out of place in their own home. Don't negotiate, tell her Emily is not to check on you, you're a grown man and a capable husband. End of discussion. Comment number 2, not the a-hole. It does not matter why she makes you feel uncomfortable, the fact is that she does make you uncomfortable and your wife seems to care more about being rude than about you feeling safe in your own home. And Ripe Stars, thankfully we have an update. It reads like this. Early this morning, I spoke to Becky about my concerns regarding Emily's behavior. She said that Emily doesn't have any ulterior motives and only means well. She also brought up how Emily has her own husband and always tells Becky how great he is. For some more context, Emily is married, but her husband is not home too much as he works in the military. When I asked if she could tell Emily that we don't need food deliveries, she said it would be awkward to mention it right before her trip and how it would only be once or twice a week. Another thing Becky mentioned that has only increased my uneasiness is that Emily had given her a spare house key just in case of emergencies or anything like that. For those wondering, my wife is leaving a few hours past midnight tonight. Context for clarification regarding the key. Emily gave my wife her own house key but doesn't have the key to our home. Some more context. For those wondering what Emily does, I can tell you that she does a lot of unnecessary physical contact like hugging me whenever she sees me, which did not bother me the first few times but increasingly makes me feel uneasy. Not only that, but she has made very suggestive comments in the past. I would also add that the way she dresses and her body language when she comes to our house seems to be a bit flirtatious. Based on the past few months, I'm fairly certain that she's trying a move based on how she's been acting and what she has said. Maybe she's only trying to be nice and I'm overthinking, nonetheless the whole situation makes me uncomfortable. Off the top of my head I can tell you that she does a lot of unnecessary physical contact, makes very suggestive comments, and the way she dresses when she comes to our home when I'm home also makes me uncomfortable. Update number 2, I would like to thank everyone who responded to my first post. I've taken the advice suggested multiple times in the comments and I've installed a doorbell camera the day after my wife had left home. Fortunately, nothing had really happened so far, so I didn't really see much of a need for an update until recently. Without further ado, here's the update. For the past few days, things have been pretty quiet. I've been enjoying spending quality time with my daughter Alice. She attends a summer day camp during my working hours, but we've been spending every evening and the past weekend together watching movies, going on walks, playing video games, etc. My wife Becky had planned on teaching Alice how to cook this summer, but since that's yet to come, I've taken the opportunity. I think Alice is a natural, she picks up instructions quickly and we've been having a lot of fun. The day before yesterday, our neighbor Emily came to drop off some food as she had told Becky that she would. I did open the door as I decided to just accept once to be polite, but I let her know that she didn't need to worry herself with any other deliveries as my daughter and I would be cooking. She was acting normally until the very end where she said something along the lines of, "If there's anything else I can do for you, please let me know," she said in a very flirtatious tone. I thanked her and told her that I appreciated the gesture but reiterated that we would be able to manage on our own. She then said, "Well, if you crave anything else, just let me know." Just think of it as a substitute for Becky. This made me feel a little bit uncomfortable, mainly because of the tone she said it in. The next morning, yesterday, Alice and I were rushing to go to camp and work. Emily popped out from nowhere and started telling me how her driveway was being resurfaced and she needed somewhere to put her car for the next few days. She asked if she could place it in our driveway and I agreed as Alice and I were in a rush and because she dropped off the food the previous night. As I was driving away, I was mentally kicking myself as now she would have a reason to hang around our home. Later that day, I was home doing some chores in our garage when Emily pulled up in her car, mentioning again how her driveway was being resurfaced. I could see that it was indeed the case. We had a bit of small talk, but at some point, she went into a tirade about her husband. She shared how she sometimes felt unappreciated by him sometimes and how they don't get to spend time together. I didn't say too much during this, only that I felt sorry that she felt that way. I glanced at my phone and then pretended that Alice was texting me to come pick her up. It was close enough to her time anyway. I said goodbye and locked up my house, and yesterday evening was largely uneventful and I'm looking forward to spending more time with my kid. Update number 3, I wanted to give a quick update on what's been happening since my last post. Becky will be back in a few days Friday night and I didn't want to disrupt her trip or make her worry, so I've spared her most of the Emily details until she arrives. From speaking with Becky, however, I have learned that her sister does not like Emily at all. Becky told me that she was pretty upset about the arrangement and that she thinks Becky is overly trusting. Aside from that, things have been largely quiet this week. Emily's driveway has been completed, so she has taken her car back. I have not seen much of her since then. Update number 4. Hey everyone, it's been a pretty wild 24 hours. I'll give a quick recap of what's been happening. Since Becky was coming home last night, Alice and I spent most of the day tidying up. In the late afternoon, I decided to mow our lawn as it was about time to do so. In the past, I have occasionally mowed Emily's lawn, shoveled her driveway, etc. I do this because her husband has done this for us before, so I've always thought that this was just paying them back. Becky has also asked me to do this a few times in the past. However, because of what's been going on, I figured it would not be a good idea and I purposely mowed our lawn when her car was away so that I could return to my house discreetly. After putting away our mower, I saw Emily's car pull into her driveway. Just as I was about to go inside, she called out to me. She asked when Becky would be back and I told her that Becky's flight was scheduled to arrive tonight and she seemed happy about that. It was a humid day and I was sweating a bit. She mentioned that I looked hot. May not have meant it that way, but with her I never know, and suggested that Alice and I should drop by for drinks. I thanked her for the offer but explained that I couldn't and the conversation mostly ended there. Becky arrived home last night a few hours after midnight and was very exhausted from her flight. After I brought her some food, we were only able to talk a bit about her trip before she went to bed. I planned on discussing Emily and showing her the video the next day once she had rested, but she was still asleep in the morning and I had to run errands. This is where things got complicated. After finishing my errands, I went home to spend time with Becky and tell her about the video. When I got home, Alice had already gone out with her friends, so it was just Becky and me. Becky seemed upset, so I asked her what was wrong. She told me that after waking up, she received a text from Emily welcoming her back and inviting her over. Becky agreed and went to Emily's house. She noticed that Emily's living room was messier than usual, but what bothered her more was a pair of men's exercise shorts on the sofa. They looked identical to a pair I had, and I say had because those shorts went missing about a month ago. There was also what Becky thought was a condom wrapper on the floor next to it. During their conversation, Emily talked a lot about how kind I've been to her and how much we talked while Becky was away. Emily even suggested that Becky should have extended her stay at her sister's so she could continue looking after Alice and me. At that point, Becky excused herself and went home. She mentioned that she felt overwhelmed and almost sick. She told me that she came home panicking about what Emily might have meant, so she spoke with her sister. Her sister called BS on Emily's claims as everything seemed too conveniently placed, which calmed Becky down. After sharing all this with me, she asked about my contact with Emily during her absence. I told her about the food, the car, and the conversation from the previous day. Then I showed her the video. Becky was stunned and said that Emily was blatantly trying to flirt with me. After watching it, she said she felt sick about all her interactions with her. The main issue still bothering us is the shorts. I had an identical pair that went missing. We are unsure if the shorts Becky saw are mine or if Emily bought the same pair for her little stunt. As I mentioned before, Emily has been to our house, so it's not impossible for her to have taken them. However, we have a lack of proof of this. Considering how Emily gave my wife her own house key before she left, it all seems very well thought out. Also, we are increasingly starting to suspect that her husband may be okay with what she's doing. Becky plans to return the key in the next few days. So far, nothing else seems to be missing, but as we go on with our daily lives, maybe we'll notice something missing. We currently have a cat and I'll gauge my wife's opinion on getting a dog. If my daughter heard, I'm sure she would love the idea. The doorbell camera has really proven its worth, and in addition to the cameras we already had, every angle outside our house is covered. And yeah guys, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to not miss any of my daily uploads, and also check out my podcast by searching for Ripe Stories on Spotify, Amazon, Audible and other podcast platforms. You will often find exclusive episodes and early access to new content. Furthermore, please check out my Patreon by going to patreon.com/ripeyoutube or my YouTube membership program for even more exclusive stories. Thank you so much, and I will see you again tomorrow.